Isaac Newton said, "If I have seen further than others, it's by standing on the shoulders of giants." Today, I want to honor two health workers who were giants in our world, who have died this year, and whose strong shoulders we remember with pride. The first of them is Salome Kawe, who was an assistant nurse in Liberia. As you know, Ebola swept through Liberia in 2014, killing more than 11,000 people. It killed Salome's mother, her father, her uncle, her cousins, and a niece. But it didn't kill Salome. It didn't kill her sister, and it didn't kill her fiancé. Salome survived. She thought of herself as a super nurse. She said, it's as if I have superpowers because I can look after Ebola patients now and I won't die. And she was absolutely committed to reopening the clinic that her father, who was a doctor, had built and making it available to care for Ebola patients where she would be able to give them top-class care when other people couldn't go near them, couldn't touch them. She'd be able to do that. This is her being photographed for her Time cover. This is the kind of condition she worked in. So what she did and what she was proposing weren't easy at all. On February the 17th this year, Salome had a baby boy. She called him Solomon. She had him by C-section, and she was discharged home 3 days later. Within hours of getting home, Salome began to have convulsions. They didn't stop, so her sister and her then husband took her to hospital. But because she was foaming at the mouth and having convulsions, nobody would touch her because they were afraid they would get Ebola. And so 3 days later, Salome died. Nobody knows what caused the convulsions, but her sister believes something went wrong in the surgery. But she says if Salome had been treated differently, she would have survived. Because she'd had Ebola, she was stigmatized. News of her death has rippled far beyond the community she served. And here we are in Saxe-Pahor, Chapel Hill, remembering Salome. One of her co-workers in Médecins Sans Frontières said, after her death, to survive Ebola and then die in the larger yet silent epidemic of health system failure, I have no words, and neither have I. Salome Kawe. Our next superhero is Hans Rosling. Many of you will have seen Hans Rosling. Hands up if you did. Yes. Hans Rosling was a Swedish doctor who converted dry numbers into dynamic graphs, which couldn't fail to be exciting. He really challenged preconceptions about global health and gloomy prospects for population growth. He was a pop star statistician, perhaps the only one we shall ever know. And he died on February the 7th in Uppsala in Sweden, far too soon at the age of 68. Even before post-truth or alternative facts entered the lexicon, Hans Rosling supported the notion that everyone is entitled to their own opinions, but not to their own facts. More people need to hear this message, I think. Of himself, he said, "I produce a roadmap for the modern world. Where people want to drive is up to them, but I have the idea that if they have a proper roadmap and they know what the global realities are, they'll make better decisions." Hans Rosling was a professor of global health at the Karolinska Institute in Sweden, and with his son and daughter-in-law, he established the organization called Gapminder, which was called that because of those of you who've ever been to London will know that if you're on the tube, there's some guy who comes on, I think it might be a woman now, and she says, "Mind the gap." Have you heard that? Mind the gap. And so he used this because what he said was the foundation aims to chart trends and fight what it called the devastating ignorance with fact-based worldviews everyone can understand. And the images that Gapminder generates are designed to show the divide between what statistics actually say and how they are sometimes presented. And Hans Rosling used to say, it's like the emperor's new clothes, and I'm the little child saying, "He's nude, he's nude." And I had the honor to meet him once at a conference and chat to him and spend a bit of time with him. And he was both interesting and interested. And I think one of the things I'll always remember about him was he was intensely curious about everything, which is a wonderful quality and perhaps what brings us to Switchpoint as well. He didn't just talk the talk, though, and I didn't know this about him until I'd done some research. He actually was a district health officer in Mozambique in 1979, working in the north, in a remote area of Mozambique, with a population of 300,000. And when the Ebola outbreak occurred, he went to Monrovia to help with the epidemiology and the statistics of what was occurring. So he walked the walk as well as talking the talk. He and Salome had in common that they were both honored by Time magazine. Time included Hans Rosling in its 2012 list of the world's 100 most influential people, and they said, "His stunning renderings of the numbers have moved millions of people worldwide to see themselves and our planet in new ways." So I thought I'd leave this short tribute to two real public health heroes by showing you some of Hans Rosling's wonderfully moving communication style. Thank you.
And we is Western world, and them is third world. And what do you mean with Western world, I said? Well, that's long life in small family, and third world is short life in large family. So this is what I could display here. I put fertility rate here, number of children per woman, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to about 8 children per woman. We have very good data since 1962, 1960 about, on the size of families in all countries. The error margin is narrow. Here I put life expectancy at birth, from 30 years in some countries up to about 70 years. And 1962, there was really a group of countries here that was industrialized countries, and they had small families and long lives. And these were the developing countries. They had large families and they had relatively short lives. Now, what has happened since 1962? We want to see the change. Are the students right? It's still two types of countries? Or have these developing countries got smaller families and they live here? Or have they got longer lives and live up there? Let's see. We start the world. And this is all UN statistic that has been available. Here we go. Can you see there? It's China. They're moving against better health. They're improving there. All the green in Latin American countries, they are moving towards smaller families. The yellow ones here are the Arabic countries, and they get larger families, but longer lives, but not larger families. The Africans are the green down here, they still remain here. This is India. Indonesia is moving on pretty fast. And in the 80s here, you have Bangladesh still among the African countries there, but now Bangladesh, it's a miracle that happens in the 80s. The imams start to promote family planning, and they move up into that corner. And in 90s, we have the terrible HIV epidemic that takes down the life expectancy of the African countries, and all the rest of the world moves up into the corner where we have long lives and small family, and we have a completely new world.